Howdy y'all, we got a few things to put on this tractor so we can keep moving forward.
Man, that paint's nice there, look at that.
Other than the bugs you were just complaining about.
Yeah, like that?
Yeah, well, I think we're more right there. Got the fan shroud on. I went ahead and put a flat washer in here. Yeah, we're going to touch these bolts up later, but that's on there. Now we need to put the oil cooler on here. And remember, this oil cooler is just going to be cosmetic because I've already disabled the oil cooler lines coming out of the filter housing. I need to find some studs that go in here and down here, and the cooler, the grill guard, and the cosmetic trim, that all hangs off of those studs. This looks like the length of stud I'm going to need. Dad's got this mocked up. These are the cooler lines that come out of the filter housing. And he's working on right now a clamp, and the bolt goes through here, and it's got a nut on the other side that clamps and holds these. And then there's another clamp that comes off of this bolt here on the fan shroud, and these pipes go through to the oil cooler. Of course, we're going to have to screw these into the oil cooler before we install it. Now, I have two studs cleaned up, and I don't know why this tractor and the 7J, they had studs in here. But in the parts book, I just looked them up, they're a 3-inch bolt. This stud's pretty ugly, and I don't really want to use it, but I could have reused it, but I was just looking, and it's a different length too, so we're going to just order bolts for all of this. But so I can get things together, I'm just going to screw these in there loosely to hold everything up until I get the bolts. This reminds me of a joke. Dad's making a piece of leather to go in the clamps here to hold these lines. I just loosened them up, and what I'm going to do is hang the oil cooler on the front so that I can screw these in, and we don't care if they're super tight. We're not worried about leaks here. It should be plugged off. Before I bring that cooler over here, I am gonna put a little thread sealer on here. Just out of overabundance of caution, I guess. This is sensor safe thread sealer, so we don't have to worry about damaging any of the sensors on this machine.
It's got such sophisticated electronics.
Yes, there's kind of a shroud that goes on here first, and then our cooler is gonna go on top of this.
Leave it out. Well, you'll have to come in to me.
And then start them. Need a croissant. It fits all.
They don't have to be too tight. An 8-inch will work.
Now it won't leak.
Maybe I needed a bigger wrench.
I think so.
Somewhere right in there.
That'll do, yeah. Dad's got the clamps ready over here, and we're going to put a little piece of leather inside of here to protect the lines, because we don't want them to wear through and not leak since there's no oil in them. And we want this thing to be as quiet as a Mercedes. Hooked right up, no problem. Dad's got everything started.
Before I tighten them, we'll put our clamp in.
I'm going to install the overflow for the radiator. And it's got a couple of clamps that come off of these bolts for the fan shroud.
Now we just got to tighten these guys.
All right.
And I got one more to go in right here. Where was it?
On the middle fan shroud bolt right there.
Right there.
It gets a clamp too.
That should be pretty easy.
Now you jinxed yourself.
Yeah, well, it's better than that double.
Clamps on. Now we're just tightening up all the fittings going to the oil filter housing and the cooler. We had to fix these. They were getting a little too close together for our comfort. Even though they're not going to leak or rub a hole in them.
We're good.
We just want it that way. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, that's the way it goes. And I'll get the bolts. That's going to look pretty good.
Put a couple on here and it'll store it here and protect
our... Yeah, I'll put a couple nuts on there.
Yeah.
Okay, as soon as I get the bolts, we'll finish the front of this up. Dad's got the air breather all tore apart. Now, we haven't put this all the way together yet, and these baffle stacks go inside that pot, and the idea is you can take them out and clean them. And of course, this is an oil bath air cleaner, and they stack in there right on top of that one.
Those are and there's like two or three more in there, but they're soldered in.
Well, Dad's working on that. I'm going to install this 1W7554 fuel pressure gauge right here on the side of the fuel tower. This is the piece that we're going to install the gauge into, and you'll remember on my other video how we got that sorted out. And these new gauges, these are all the Caterpillar upgraded part numbers for the original gauge. So this is the mounting hardware kit that comes with each one of these gauges that I'm going to install. First thing I need to do is install this line onto the back of the gauge. I'm going to put a little bit of that thread sealer in here. Careful not to get it anywhere near the gauge. This is the line that goes over to the side of the fuel tower. Now that I got that line on there, I'm going to take it over to the fuel tower and kind of test fit it. Looks like the line is going to go back here a little bit. I need to turn this a little bit, slip this bezel around here, but I'm going to put the bracket on here that holds it to the back of the bezel, and we can snug these nuts down that hold the gauge in there. I'm going to go ahead and install this, and I think I'm close enough. I can bend that line into there where I need it to be, and these are very, very tiny screws. We've stacked all these baffles in here, and the parts book right here shows that there's 5 of them, and one screen that is a different part number, which is this one with these springs here on the bottom. So those stack in there. This is nearest we can tell. And I guess when you change your oil bath in the bottom here, those screens all fall out and you're supposed to clean them. This air cleaner is upside down, so this is the bottom.
Right.
So if you're servicing this in the field, all 6 of those are going to want to come out with this cup on the bottom.
So this is
and this has a couple of springs on it as well. And this is your service cap. This is where your oil sits in the air cleaner. Probably up to this line right here, which is kind of the mark. And then there's a tag up here we have covered up. We'll take tape off of that after we get it installed. We got the air intake installed, but I did that before. I didn't want to bore you with doing it again, but this time we put the cover on the bottom and all the screens in there. Our fuel line's pretty much all assembled. Dad has the return on top of the injectors installed. He's going to get some parts at the hardware store to go from here into the side of the fuel tower, because this was 4Gs and it's not exactly the same as the one we had on 7J. Underneath the lift pump here and the main fuel pump, Dad has installed the discharge lines under here, and there's a clamp that goes here, which we have here waiting to dry with a little bit of fresh paint. So as soon as that's dry, we'll get that on there. Dad's been busy working over here on 4G while I've been rebuilding the carburetor. Yeah, we got multiple things going all the time. It really makes it a trick to edit at times because I'm bouncing back and forth trying to film both of us. Put the carburetor on here. This is the gasket that came with the kit. Cat also has those. You can buy them separately. I just shortened this stud because that carburetor would not fit on here all the way, and this is a very close fit. So you almost have to start the nut before you put the carburetor down here all the way. I got those tight, and those are not easy to get to. Neither one of those. I actually used a crow's foot on the other side if I happen to have it. It worked pretty well. But this side, you really got to take the governor off to do it. Got my throttle linkage in here. And in this bracket, there's a wood plug that's got kind of a groove in it. That's going to go in here, followed by this spring right here. and those keep kind of a detent pressure against each other. I've got the other wood plug right here. This one's actually looks like a plastic, but we'll put that in there when we put this other choke linkage in there. Throttle linkage down here, this part hooked up. Now I'll have to hook up the governor to get the rest of it. And I'm working on the choke linkage, and I cannot find a consistent idea of how this was bent. And I'm sure it has been bent several times in its life, but I think I've got it pretty squared away where it won't bother anything here. We're going to put the flywheel on the pony motor. I've got the governor back on here, and we're trying to set our linkage for the governor. But before I tighten down the governor, I want to get the belt on here going to the flywheel. There's a key way that goes into the crankshaft right here. I've got a 1 November 4635 Caterpillar belt that I was assured that would fit this, but I don't find this cross-reference or this belt anywhere. So we're going to give it a try. I have another belt option just in case.
I think it went there.
There we go.
Should be able to see it up here now.
3B 4897. It's our fold over. This is probably going to be the hard part.
You want me to roll this?
No, I think I got it. I got it. Okay.
That belt fits nice.
And that's a cat belt. 1N4635. That's about perfect. Looks to me like it lines up pretty decent.
Yeah.
Guess we got compression. So that's wide open with your throttle. Go ahead and push it in. My spring's sticky. There.
We might have to adjust that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's sticking.
Here.
Paint on everything.
It's starting to go.
Alright, I'll turn this set screw down for now and snug it up. And we just tightened up the governor spring here a little bit. There it goes.
So we use it, it'll probably work in.
So there's a little cotter key I got to put in the end of this pin here. And there's a little bit of a bend right there. We need to go down so that it's straight going through there.
All right, and then so that's full open.
Yes.
And we're only getting to there.
Yeah, it should go another.
Why are we only? Oh, our rod is bent.
Your rod's hitting, and we're starting to hit the top of the magneto here too.
All right, take it off of there.
This is a choke control off of the Real McCoy. We cannot get the geometry correct off the one off of 4G, so we might end up using this one. We have spent the better part of probably 2 hours trying to get the geometry correct on this choke linkage here. And I'm at my wit's end, but Dad thinks he's got it ironed out. He's working on it up on the bench. This is a 3B9068 in original packaging. Actually, Squatch 253 sent these to us quite a while ago to use here on Lefty. And I'm going to put these in the pony motor heads. I left this one turned a little bit so it'll clear when we engage the pinion. But these are the peckhawks that you release to release compression. You can also check and see if you got any oil in your cylinders. And yes, that's the part number that it shows for this tractor. On this side over here, we don't have any interference issues, so I'm leaving it just like that. We're still fighting this choke linkage over here.
I really don't know how you do
it,
because right now it clears the magneto beautifully. It goes full open, full close.
Go ahead and pull it back. Wonder how many of these got shot out in a field somewhere when they were taking them apart. Let's start it. All right.
You'll have to.
There we go. After messing with this for way too long, we're finally comfortable with where it's at. I actually found a throttle and a choke knob from Caterpillar. Yes, they still had these. Yes, they came from somewhere back east, but I got them. So we're going to put those on next. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we're putting in the cotter keys to hold these linkages up here. This is off. There's full choke. And that's wide open throttle. Up next, spark plugs, and this is a 2A3643 spark plug, and they are actually just a Champion spark plug. Looks like a Champion D16, and we're looking for 0.025 for a gap. According to my gauge, that is exactly what we have. No problems here. These are gapped perfectly from the factory. I really have never had too much bad luck with these, except when I got a box that was damaged. Maybe it was dropped or something, but I always check them. Gonna put just a dab carefully of Marvel Mistral on those threads. Up next, we're gonna put the spark plug wires in, and I do not for the life of me remember where I got these. It was so long ago when I was still in my wishful thinking stage. Since we started this build, I've been impressed by this little divot here, even in the casting, to accommodate this spark plug wire. I might have to play with the routing on that until I'm comfortable with where it's at. Let's get the other side on. All right, that's on there. Now I need to figure out the ground wire. Dad has the Eisman, this is a switch, and I think this is a one off of the 5T. To shut off the magneto, so kill the spark. So he's testing it with an ohm meter. Ironically, the switch off of 4G, the original magneto switch, it's working. Dad just cleaned up the switch for the magneto that goes right here to turn it off. And basically when you turn the switch off, it grounds the system. And I need to put a wire from the top of the magneto to the back of this switch, but I've got the parts ordered for that, so that will be in a future video. I wonder if we need to take the paint off to ground it better.
Yeah, that
maybe we should just rat tail the holes.
Mess up your new choke thing.
I know. Those are expensive at Caterpillar.
These are loose, so you can put your wire on. The inside one's a little snug, but it'll work.
Those little nuts are 11/32, so one of my old Craftsman's.
And you can't get a box end on them. Do those studs go in further?
Those studs are going to come out, and I'm going to put the bolts in.
Oh.
I'm just using those to hang it and hold it. These are Caterpillar bolts, the same length that's supposed to be in there, same part number. That looks very good. I've got one different bolt down there in the bottom, but I ordered the correct length bolts, some just a smidge longer from Caterpillar. The factory ones up here were a little bit short, and we kind of fought them a little bit, but we got them all good, everything lined up. I want to thank you for joining us on part 1 of the D4 Final Assembly series. We'll see you on the next one. So that's off. There's our full choke. You had your finger in there?
No, I'm fine.
All right. Dad says he doesn't want them even because pilots and airplanes, they have different knobs so you can feel that they're different. So.
Yeah, right.
So this is our 10,000-pound plane here.
Yeah.
And we want this machine to be as quiet as a Ferrari, quiet as a Lincoln Continental, as quiet as a Mercedes.